Hello and welcome to Macro Mondays here on Landy's Crypto Corner. Today is October 14th, 2024, and Bitcoin's kind of hit all of our targets that we talked about in all of the expected areas thus far. Now, that's not much of a surprise. Our levels are pretty clean. Bitcoin plays cleanly with all of the previous, historical support and resistance areas. So, it's nothing magical. It's just as easy as identifying the high and low structures. So one of the reasons why I bring this up is because Bitcoin has run to exactly the area that we expected and talked about on Friday in terms of criteria that needed to be met to the upside. For the weekly, we had a nice doji close on Sunday. So if we look at the weekly here, you can see that I have the typical stoplight lines here, and we have the green for go, we've got the yellow to set the low, and we've got the red for oh no, and that would be the breakdown. So Bitcoin has this higher high structure on the weekly. It has the potential now to actually set not only a swing higher low, but a closing higher low on any closes above $64,500 by Sunday this week. If it does close anywhere above the close open here of last week on the low side here, coming in at the 62,800 level, then even the following week would still have the ability to close back above that 64.5, lock in this swing low as a valid swing low, and then of course a technical closing low. Now let me remind you, what am I looking for? I'm looking for closes back above 65,600 to really set that true higher low on a close, and that's exactly what we want to see coming off of this higher low structure at 52.5. But remember, because this was a lower low close, I needed to see and need to see still another higher low at minimum on a swing. And because of the way last week's candle painted as an indecisive doji, some might even call it a Morningstar reversal. And, with how it painted, from candle structure, closes back above 64.5 would do it in terms of completing that as a Morningstar reversal. But, we need to see closes back above that 64.5 to set the swing and set the close technically. What do I want to see, though, on a close to actually call this a closing low? 65,601 penny there by Sunday, or at minimum remain above 62.8 on closes throughout the next weekly after, and then go up and take out that 65,600 or so. Now, if we see that, what do we also need to see? Well, we need to see Bitcoin starting to close dailies back above this high wick over here, which is this higher high, which was the trend break from the downtrending structure here after Bitcoin closed above this last $65,000 lower high. So we need to see 66,550 closed above on the daily, to start running at least the next weekly, 68 to around 70K, and then 70 to around 70, 172. We have the close open on the weekly. This is the current close open all-time high at 71, 2 to 300. And then we have the double top wicks on that daily, but was a technically just one single swing high or two swings at the highs for that $72,000 double top there. Above there, we're looking all-time high and higher. So realistically, the biggest overhead resistance is going to be between 70 and 72 up here. And then it's pretty much clear sailing to the all-time high and higher, at least in my opinion, when it comes to horizontal support and resistance. But this week is going to be very important to watch how price kind of plays out. Nice Monday pump. And we've seen a lot of Monday pumps though. And, by the end of the week, they tend to peter out. At least that's what's happened. Well, all of these highs, including these highs over here. So, we do need to keep our head on a swivel when it comes to price action. Let's go ahead and check on a few other things here. Let's check on our momentum indicator, and then we'll look at volatility. So we're kind of going out of order. Typically, I like to look at trend, support, and resistance, which I talked about here. and then usually volatility and then momentum. But in this case, let's take a look at momentum. It's right here. 57.5 is going to keep stoke momentum pointed to the upside here in the context of entering now the bullish control zone. Now, this is a regular stoke, not a stoke RSI. Stoke RSI measures the velocity of RSI, or the speed, and a regular stoke measures close over close price momentum. So, it is up as expected, as we do have these nice 3 green candles, a little bit of a pullback, and then, so far so good in terms of the early goings this week. It's just about where it closes, because this is a weekly. So let's go ahead and turn on the Bollinger Band set here, and you're going to see something very interesting right off the bat. And I talked about this on Friday. Now, the upper first was a little bit above this high, to be fair. And we saw Bitcoin kind of poke through this upper first standard deviation. And because of the way that the band setup is now in terms of volatility metrics, this is a natural area to find resistance. But the nice thing is Bitcoin closed above the basis, which I had mentioned on Friday we wanted to see. The basis is now at 62,300. And, anywhere below there, we're looking essentially back to that low at 58.8. In this case, it's 58.863. 58.8 is a big monthly level. I'll turn on the monthly longer-term time frame chart in here in just a moment. But from a volatility standpoint, if we see the daily starting to fall below 62,300 in the context of the weekly, not the daily, but the weekly, from a volatility standpoint, this low is in play there at 58.863 all the way down to the lower first. You'll see that is at 58.136. There's kind of a zone in here where there is some major daily levels as well that we'll see in just a moment. If we were to see Bitcoin close the weekly above 66,550, I actually had to chew on the word there a little bit, chew on the number there, 66,550. That would put Bitcoin not just above this last higher high, but above the upper first standard deviation. And from a volatility standpoint, obviously all of the horizontal support and resistance would be the same areas that I just talked about. But from a volatility standpoint, the upper second standard deviation is well within play. That's sitting just above $70,000, coming in at 70,670, almost 70,700. If Bitcoin were to start breaking above there, especially on a close, but even on the dailies, then we start looking for that, above 70 to 72, and then 72 to the all-time high area. You can see the upper third is skating just above the all-time high now, and that's coming in at just shy of $75,000. Now, many of you may remember that I have been saying that, even when Bitcoin goes and retests those highs, an area of interest above or around the all-time highs, technically from a support and resistance and volatility level, like on the dailies, going to be around $73,000 to $75,000. So this fits. We are seeing confluence at the upper third on the weekly. That doesn't mean that Bitcoin can't close above it. Above there, I'm looking roughly 75 to 78, 78 to 80, mid to low 80s from there. And then there's some, $90,000 to $100,000 levels and some areas of interest in between. When it comes to fibs and volatility levels on longer term timeframes. We'll talk a little bit about those closer to the end of the month. I think this is going to be a pretty important week, or the next 2 weeks are going to be pretty important for Bitcoin structurally here on the weekly chart rather. And then, coming in towards the end of the month into early November, we're going to get a much clearer idea, I believe, of what, to expect for the rest of the quarter into the end of the year. Let's go ahead and check on RSI real quick. RSI, yep, skating above the 12-period moving average. I do want to see where the edge of the bullish control zone is, where the SMA is. This is a 12-period moving average. You can put this on any RSI indicator, by the way. We have the midline, and we'll check on the bearish control zone for confluences. So in this case, we have the bullish control zone. The edge of it is coming in at 72,751, so just shy of $73,000. We have the simple moving average, which, Bitcoin likes to bounce around either rejectively or as support. Sometimes, a dip through, it's not perfect, but you can kind of see like how it caught support back here in October of 23, came through, but just kind of dumped out. This was because it was very, very strong in this area, very, very high volatility before putting in the all-time high. Now, and then you see how it acted kind of as a kind of as confluent resistance. Now, it's not always going to work that way, but I did want to see where it was coming in. Hey, 61.8. This is a level I am going to talk about on the daily chart in just a moment. So that is where the SMA is. Scale midline is 60,600. So that's the 50 read. And then bearish control zone is down there at $47,000, which just so happens to be a monthly close open. But, it's just shy of that. It's right in between that bear market lower high at 45.5 to 48.240. The first major bear market lower high coming in 2022. So let's go ahead and we'll get rid of this. We're going to turn on our zones of interest. I think the weekly is pretty clear here. Close above 64.5, looking good, but we still need to see close above, essentially 65,600, and then take out 66,550 to the upside for continuation. To the downside, keep an eye on anything below $60,000, even in like lower term timeframes. Then we do have to be aware of this wick low right here at 58,863, as it does come in on that big monthly level. And actually, what we're going to do before we turn on the zones of interest is we're going to look at the macro chart real quick, and that is the weekly monthly support and resistance chart. I just want to show you how freaking clean this is. So beautiful. I know I showed it before, but it's just really impressive how Bitcoin plays. There's not many assets on this earth that play as cleanly as Bitcoin, to be quite honest with you. Stock market, there are some overall indices that you can get into, like S&P plays pretty clean, NASDAQ plays pretty clean, and Dow, they play pretty clean in terms of support and resistance levels. But, it's kind of hit or miss on some of the actual stocks. And, by far, I'm most fascinated by Bitcoin since I've started trading cryptocurrencies many, many, many years ago, too many years ago. I'm going to sound old if I start talking about that. All right, so I did want to call out that this was a perfect back test. So, we saw Bitcoin on the weekly lose not once, not twice, but 3 times, and even came down to our September of 2021 weekly swing high, but essentially closing below the monthly and quarterly. So this is actually the quarterly all-time high from the prior cycle at 58.8. Pretty much a perfect test into that area after testing the all-time high zone. These were the 2 swings from 2021, the first all-time high at 65, and then that $69,000 up there. So April of 21 and November of 2021. And nice back test right into this big monthly zone between 58.8 and 61,350 or so. This is what you would want to see. This is technically perfect in terms of a support and resistance flip. But it needs to hold, because if it's lost again, it's the lows getting run again, essentially, is what I kind of wanted to point out. At least we'd take it day by day, and we'd have to still go through the normal conditional analysis that I do. But, from the weekly standpoint, it would really start to look like that lows and possibly even the wick low down here get run into these downside supports. But so far, the bulls have done good work and really, really kind of smack the bears in their bare noses for trying to push price down again. So nice bull bait. We'll see if this is or nice bear bait, and we'll see if this is going to be bull bait. That's tough to say, actually. Let's go to the daily. Let's go ahead and turn on that accumulation distribution zones here. This is really it's played out essentially just like we talked about. I wanted to see this low hold at 59,825, and I was very specific. I wanted to see it hold on a close. Wicks can kind of land anywhere, and like I said, eyes on that below 60,000 to 60,300. Eyes on that low and lower down to 58.4. Got front run right at that monthly quarterly zone, and we did not see a close below that 59,825. In fact, perfect close open right on this 60,263. Which, by the way, was the close opens over here before popping up to 63.8 and then dumping off to 53.5, which has not been closed below. Nice 3 wicks down below there, but looking really good. So we had the nice uptrend here. We had the higher low to lower high, lower low on a close and swing, and now we have a trend break back to the upside. Kind of a bull flag if you want to play around with patterns. A little kind of extended, like bull flags usually kind of a little bit choppier down, but I guess it still classifies as bull flag for those that love drawing trend lines everywhere on their charts. But, you know, essentially it tested the highs, right? We talked about this on Friday. So Friday was back here. So after the low is set off of the 60,000 to 60,300 level, you know, what was I looking for? It had already hit some of the targets that I talked about previously, 61.8 to 62.8 over here at this high. Next area we're looking for was 63.8 to 64K, then up to 65. Above there, 65.5 to this high right here at 66.550. Now, to be fair, it did get front run by exactly $50, with the high coming in at exactly 66,500. But, you know, essentially this high's been tested. A little bit of a pullback in lower term timeframes. If this is going to, you know, get continuation, I would like to see closes above 65.5. That doesn't mean that it can't come down to around the 63.8 top side of this zone. But I would like to see, if we're going to see immediate continuation, you're going to see the closes coming in above 65.5, run this high up into 67,272. Again, I've talked about this a lot. 67,272 is the first major lower high of a downtrend within this range. We had this these two lower highs at around that 71 to 73 almost. But that was in the context of uptrending structure. We had the trend break to the downside and the first major lower high coming in at 67,272, short-term time frame resistance, blast off through, double top at 72. Tried to hold that area as support. Second major downtrend of the range is just above that 67,272, between 68 and 70K basically. That's the first major lower high of the second downtrend here. And guess where it tried to hold itself on a close open? Right at 67,272, drop down, perfect retest as resistance at exactly that high, and then dump off all the way down to 58.4. Hey, remember that level? Pop up to 63.8, and then that dump off down to 53.5. Of course, which I just mentioned. We haven't seen Bitcoin close below. Nice wicks down through it though. So essentially in the lower term timeframes, I would be expecting maybe even the daily at 67,272 to actually act as historical resistance. And if it does move through, I'm looking 68 to 70. You know, perfect. This first major lower high of the second downtrend, well, we saw the perfect closes as resistance at around that 68 to 68.3. With that perfect wick up to that $70,000 even. That's how you know that there's market makers that are definitely have their orders in when you have very even numbers that act as such clean rejections. The market makers are playing the levels just like we are playing these levels. So, yeah, above that, you know, we're looking above the run the high zone, 68 to 70, 70 to 72 essentially, right around the green zone where the double top came in, then 72 to the all-time high. And higher to that's kind of 73 to 75 area I was just talking about. Now, here's a big thing. If we do see 63.8 broken down from, look left, right? We have obviously this high over here. We've got this high structure in here as well. So if 63.8 breaks down, we're looking again 62.8 to 61.8 down here. And then anywhere below there, we're looking right back to that 60,000 to 60,300. Now, the big criteria is the same. Like on the weekly, this 58.863 or 58.8 level, we don't want to see Bitcoin closing below there. That would not be good for the bulls. We would, you know, still step it down level by level, especially in the lower term timeframes, 58.4 to 55.850. Below there, we're looking essentially around, you know, the 54 level to 53.5, which has not been closed below. Below there, we've got our, you know, 53 to essentially even through the first target one of distribution to run that low at 49K is fair game. Anywhere below there on closes, we're looking for target 2, yada, yada, yada. That's the prior bear market lower high from 2022 at 45.5 to 48.240, but we have encompassed the ETF wick high into that zone of interest. So it's like 45 to 49. I'm not too concerned on this move up today about like the extreme downside scenarios, but I guess we should cover it, right? In a really extreme downside scenario, I would be looking for the Bitcoin electrical cost, miner electrical cost, which is just the electrical cost for miners to mine Bitcoin in Bitcoin denomination. So in this case, it's around 42.2. We can actually update this. I don't think I've updated this yet today. Beware, this chart is blindingly white. So 3, 2, 1. All right, so it's actually 42.5. So it's starting to get back up here, which is good. We want to see hash rate rising a little bit and kind of recovering. A little bit more increased competition on the network. It's actually 42.8. Very nice. Look at you. Look at you, miners. You're doing good. You're actually competing again. So 42.8, we do have to update that. Good. So it's actually outside of the top bounds of our target 3 of distribution, which is basically a big monthly level at 38.5 to 42.5, which is around a big weekly area. All right, so that's like crash scenario, like March of 2020 style, where it just, only in a crash scenario would we be looking to that as like an area of interest, likely to get front run. But if it did wick through, it would be good luck getting orders in there. But all opportunity, not financial advice, of course. But do your own research. You can go back and look at 2020. It only dipped under Bitcoin mining electrical cost in that extreme scenario, which, by the way, we already had lower highs. So it was expected that it was going to get really bad. And Bitcoin mining electrical cost floor was kind of where it spiked into, barely got under it, and it was already pulling away substantially by, even in that, sub 10K price point, it was moving a couple of $1,000s in candles. So very volatile, very tough to get orders in. So most people ended up in at around like $5,000 to $6,000. But yeah, that would be in a crash scenario. If it starts to trend down, we'll likely see that trend back down. But looks good. I like what I'm seeing. Let's go ahead and look at, oh no, we got to look at, we talked about trend. This is now a trend break back to the upside. We need to see higher lows to complete this trend reversal again off of this little mini downtrend after the uptrend. So we just need to see at minimum swing higher lows or closing higher lows from here. So wherever this puts in a high, pull back, needs to hold this last low. And that's coming in at around 60,250, 263 here, right on that line, and that 58.8 level. So need to maintain closures above there, and then higher low, it's way out here, no matter how high it goes. That's the last low for reference. So let's go ahead and look at volatility. We'll do these things in order. We talked about trend, support, and resistance, and now we'll talk about volatility on the daily. And you can see I had mentioned that we were getting a compression on the daily here. And we had, the upper first just above that 54.5 high. Nice close above it, pushing that upper second. And volatility is ticking up, 28 over 14. Looking pretty good. And you can see where the upper second is starting to line up with this 67,272 level. I will tell you, when Bitcoin was still hanging around the highs early in today's candle, this upper second was directly on that 67,272. So that is an area of confluence. That also means that if it's broken above, not only is it very significant from, historical support and resistance perspectives, but it would also put it above the upper second, therefore increasing volatility as it heads into this 68 to 70 zone up here. Technically speaking, this is 68.3 to 70,200 or something, but we just call it 68 to 70. And for those of you that have access to the charts in the Discord, you can always grab this chart directly if you want the exact numbers. The other thing is I share these often in Spaces events. You can always grab it from there. But it is, only when asked or if it is part of that day's initiative to show you the charts. I would like to see, this would be what Landy wants to see. We're starting to see the etchings of expansion on the daily. For this to get continuation, obviously we need to see above the upper second, put it above this high in a close, and then above 67,272 to go test 68 to 70. That's well within Bitcoin's ability to do so in this kind of a setup. To remain in this expansive posture, we need to see continued closes above the upper first. Does that mean that it can wick down below to 63.8 or even go back and retest the basis? Absolutely. That's a pretty long wick from here, to believe it or not, down there at that $63,000 where the basis band is coming in. But as long as it's closing above the upper first, you will see that volatility will remain on the rise. And in this case, above the basis, pointed to the upside in terms of volatility metrics. Excuse me. Sorry, I was doing a lot of talking today. Now, of course, back below this area, you can see 63 is just above this high at 62.8, and this close open structure over here at 61.8. Now we also have this close open high to be aware of at 62.8, which is this high over here. Don't you just love confluences? So fair game, but don't ignore this order block sitting right on top or right around this basis band right here at 63,183. Fair game if Bitcoin does start to test back below 63,800. Now, upper first is at $65,000. So this high over here. Lower term time frame, you start seeing this high lost at 65. Look down to 63.8, possibly down into $63,000. So any closes below there, it's going to blunt the expansion on the daily, at least for then. And any closes below the basis band would start to target, possibly this higher low swing at 62, down to the lower first at 61,200 or so, and then eventually that 60,000 to 60,300 area. Anywhere below there, you can see where the lower second is kind of lining up with this last low. It is not there yet, but if Bitcoin started to head down that way, it's likely that we would see it on any kind of closes below the lower first towards the lower second that loses support. We'd likely see it right around 58.8, thus targeting that 58.4 level and lower if it breaks down. Yeah, it's looking pretty good for the bulls right now. And to be fair, it looked pretty good over here. Coming off of this higher low. It looked pretty good over here, coming off of this higher low and then double topping. Hey, it looked pretty good over here, coming off of this higher low and even that nice higher high. Now, of course, there was a lot of stuff going on. This was Bitcoin Nashville and all that kind of stuff. There was also some major events kicking off around that time, and it was looking really extended coming off of this reversal off the lows. So it was due for a pullback, and then, of course, it got exacerbated on the way down by the Japanese yen carry trade. You can thank the United States and many other countries for initiating that carry trade. You're welcome if you're a trader. I know I am. I was not involved in that, though. That was the institutional players. But yeah, so, that's possible we see another double top. Well, you'll know by the time we talk, likely next time on Wednesday. It's not something I'm looking out for. The setup has changed. And I noted, when Bitcoin bounced off of $49,000 and put in the lower high so far here, because it was just a straight shot down, really exacerbated move. And the lower high was much lower in the range and easier for the bulls to recover. Got that higher low, higher high, dumped off to retest the lows, and then slowly crawled its way back up. That we had a really nice setup for a structural reversal on our hands. Basically a big old accumulation, reaccumulation range, if you will, to start to resolve, in this case, to the upside. Is it there yet? Is it ready yet? We'll see, based on some of the stuff I talked about earlier, especially when it comes to the weekly, because quite frankly, wicks can land anywhere on the daily. It's really going to be about where things close, and then especially close on the weekend. Now, let's look at momentum on the daily. Looking nice and strong at the moment. Let's projected to get into the bullish control zone here. Again, this is a regular Stoke momentum, and look at that. Pivots at $60,000. And like I said earlier, pretty much below $60,000. You better keep an eye on that 58.8 wick low, because if it breaks, we're already going lower, or it will go lower on any closes below there. And that's pretty much it. 30 minutes of me talking in your ear about Bitcoin price. I'm sure you're sick of hearing my voice. So I'm going to let you go. I want to thank you all for hanging out with me in these videos. Please, please, please give them a like and share if you can. It does help the algo on X. And, all this information is free. I don't even charge for this indicator here that I built. Which this is not an indicator. I'm like circling the chart like that's the indicator. Jesus. All right. The indicator here, the landing bands with trend checker. This has a whole bunch of stuff in it. It's free. I get a lot of questions about this. It's got bull bands built in. It's got moving averages built in. You can even adjust them. MA or SMA. You can change the length. You can turn the labels on and off. You can even go down here and you can see you can adjust the BBWP settings. I would not do that. They're very finely tuned. There's a super trend in here. There's a whole bunch of different things that you can turn on and off in the style panel that need to be moved over to the input panel, but that's for a later time. The indicator is still in beta. I have some signals that are going to be coming in terms of just kind of on chart signals. These are not long and short signals, but helping you define price action, what's going on. They will be updating in this indicator soon, and then we're likely going to release it publicly. And when I say we're, I mean me, but I have a friend who is assisting me because I'm kind of dumb when it comes to this stuff in terms of coding. But yeah, it's free. You can find it in the bit.ly link in my X profile. You can find it in the video description down below if you're watching this on YouTube. You have a wonderful morning, afternoon, and evening, no matter where you are in the world. Please trade safe, and of course, as always, stay safe. With all of that being said, Landy out, and I look forward to talking to you tomorrow in the 100-day giveaway. Take care.